Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us and see us, and you'll be able to see the very wonderful Sara Grant, Simon James Green, and Catherine Kettle. Welcome to this talk about undiscovered voices. Before we begin, there are a couple of things I need to make you aware of. Please feel free to use the chat to talk to each other in the audience. But if you have any questions for our panel members, please put them in the Ask a Question that you will find below. You can also have a look at those questions and vote up any that you think are a good question that you would like our panel to answer. You will also see at the bottom a donate to 7 Stories button. If you can donate to 7 Stories, please do so. They do some amazing work. And if you didn't catch John Beatty's session on 7 Stories yesterday, please go back and watch it. It talks about all of the things they've been doing during the pandemic and how they've been fusing literacy with food and helping families to access books and to also cook some food with each other over the lockdown period, and especially during the school holidays. So yeah, please go and have a look at what they're doing. They're doing amazing work, and then if you can, please donate to them. Okay, so I'm very excited about this Undiscovered Voices panel. We have Sara Grant with us, as I said. Sara is the mother of Undiscovered Voices.
I
was going to say mother of dragons, nearly. She is
at least one dragon.
At least one. And we're going to be talking to Sara a little bit more about how she thought of the amazing idea to do Undiscovered Voices. And then we have Simon James Green, who is an author who was found via Undiscovered Voices, and Simon now volunteers to help in the Undiscovered Voices process, which I think is all about, wearing swishy cloaks and a lot of alchemy going on and things like that. And then we have the wonderful Catherine Kettle, who was also discovered through Undiscovered Voices, and her book has just come out. There will be links to everybody's books in the chat, so if you want to, you should go check them out, most definitely. So please do that. So I'm going to hand over to Sara. And Sara, how did this all start?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for a panel on Undiscovered Voices, and for letting me sit next to the 3 of you, 3 people, Undiscovered Voices alumni with incredibly amazing books. I have my copies here and have pre-ordered Annalise's book. So yes, I always have a nice reading list because of Undiscovered Voices. Anyway, in 2006, I just finished my master's in Goldsmiths and had been part of a team, and we put out an anthology of some of the students' work, and then we invited agents to come in and had some readings. And I thought, why can't we do that at SCBWI? I'm a longtime member of SCBWI. I know you've had some sessions about being networking and how great it is. It really is. I wouldn't be published if it wasn't for SCBWI. A volunteer for more than 25 years in both the US and UK. And wanted to say, how can we help writers get discovered? Because at the time I was unpublished as well, and it was 2006. I'm not a sleeper, so I still have the document. One night at 1 a.m. couldn't sleep, so wrote this 2-page plan about how we could do something like this. And then I was working at Working Partners at the time, and went into my partner in crime, Sarah O'Connor, and she and I discussed it and presented it to SCBWI, who said great. And we also presented it to our boss at Working Partners, and they agreed to fund it and have funded it since the very first moment. I mean, none of this is possible without Working Partners and their support. They've been amazing. And so Sarah and I sat down, and it was just the 2 of us. And we had the first anthology, and I went back yesterday. This is the first one of 2008. And of the 12 writers in here, 10 of them have books, and they have more than 100 books just from the first 10 writers in the first anthology, which it is incredibly is amazing to me, because when Sarah and I sat down and we started talking about Undiscovered Voices, we thought if we have one published writer, if we get one book deal, we will consider Undiscovered Voices a success. And so to go back and look and see that many writers have had deals for 100 books, and now we have towards 100 writers with more than 260 heading to 300 books that are sold worldwide. So it is a pretty amazing network. And just to give you kind of a brief background on Undiscovered. We publish an anthology, and we have this next one in 2020 will be our 8th. These are the lovely 7 anthologies that we've produced. Every year we try to kind of give a little bit more to the writers who were selected. So last year we started a mentorship program. So each writer had an Undiscovered Voices alumni to help them kind of through the process, and someone they could ask questions to. We also have a Getting Discovered workshop for those 12 who are selected. And we try to tell them anything and everything that they can do to make the most of the opportunity. And then we have a lovely party in February every other year, where we kind of launch and announce these lovely, great writers to the world, and invite agents and editors to that. And the interesting thing is that was the party that we had in 2020 was kind of the last time I was out in the world. So I have very, very fond memories of being out and connecting agents with editors. And I think one of the most important things to remember about Undiscovered Voices is it's volunteer driven. The whole team, we have a team. Simon is on the team and he's wonderful, but we also have names you might know like Catherine Coe and Ginny Glencross. I know they're connected to Golden Egg. And we also have, because it's the EU and UK, we have Elizabeth Bray, who's with SCBWI in the EU. We have Rosie Best from Working Partners, Benjamin Scott, who is a longtime volunteer for SCBWI. So that team is amazing. And I think this will be our 3rd or 4th anthology together. And it's a joy. Every single time it's a joy. And it's been a really wonderful, wonderful part of my life since 2006.
Oh, fabulous. I'm really sorry. I had to quickly tell my child to stop hoovering, which is a terrible thing as a mother. You're encouraging them to do it all the time and they decide to do it when this is happening. So right outside my door. Excellent. So I apologize for that. Thank you so much, Sarah, for talking about how it started and how it snowballed, and it has become so amazing. And the successes that come out of Undiscovered Voices are huge. If you look at the percentage hit rate of as time goes on of how many people, I know it's just amazing.
I looked at my bookshelf and I just picked out some of the books, because I always, if my authors, because they're always, after you're Undiscovered Voices, you are one of my authors. And I just went and picked a selection. And we also have I'm Sorry, Simon James Green, Whales on the Bus. And then, of course, this is these 2 guys' books. Buy them now.
Yes, you can find the links in the chat, so do go and search that out. So I want to come to Kitty and Simon now. So I want you to both talk about why you entered Undiscovered Voices. What was it for you? You thought, hey, this seems like a good thing to do, and also how did that help you? How did that help you to find an agent and go on to find a publisher? So should we come to Simon first, and then, you can chat betwixt yourselves?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am terribly impatient as a person, and the thing is with children's publishing is it seems to be full of people who kind of have been toiling for 20, 30, 40 years to try and get a book published, and then finally when they're 95 it happens, and I couldn't be doing with that at all. I kind of wanted the book published immediately. I want it published now. And the thing about Undiscovered Voices, I've been watching it for a couple of years and seeing what happened. It really seemed to be the sort of thing that could kind of turbocharge things for you a little bit and really get things moving in a kind of industry where traditionally things normally go really bloody slowly. So I was really excited for it for that reason, because I've seen other authors get interest, quite quickly from both agents and publishers as a result of being in the anthology. So I entered predominantly for that reason. I wanted a kind of a bit of a sort of kickstart and see what happened. And I have to say it did. Although everyone's experience is different, and there's no kind of one way that it works out for people, and there's different timelines and timeframes for every different person who's selected for the anthology. For me, I was in a really lucky position where I think I ended up with about 20 requests from agents for the full manuscript in the end, and kind of multiple offers of representation shortly after that. And so for me, it really worked. And I was in that amazing position where I wasn't having to approach agents myself. They were actually coming to me and offering me representation based on what they'd read, which was not the normal way it works, obviously, as you'll all know, and was a wonderful thing. So that was fantastic. But also, apart from that, because the anthology goes out to all the publishers as well, they're also kind of already aware of your work by the time that your agent puts out on submission to them. So they can say to them, you know, this is Simon's manuscript. You met him at the UV party, so you already kind of know it. And it's a good little introduction. So already, you know, in an industry that relies a lot on kind of building buzz and excitement about your book, it's a great way, I've found, of achieving that buzz and getting people talking about it and excited about it. Doesn't mean they're going to take it on, doesn't mean you'll get representation or a book deal, but I think it does greatly increase your chances, in my opinion, based on my experience and what I've seen happen to other authors as well.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think I'd say that we had some similar personality traits, and definitely I have some impatience, but you know, and I wanted that turbo boost as well. But that wasn't my main reason for entering the Undiscovered Voices. I thought it might be a potential. I was actually, before I wrote this book that I love, The Boy I Am, plug, I'd written and worked on a book for 10 years and I'd fallen in love with it and then fallen out of love with it because it had taken so long to get to a point where I thought, actually, I'm done with this book and I need to move on. After, you know, going through rejections from agents, going through competitions and other things, and just getting to a point where I thought, no, moving on now. And I didn't want to go through that process again. I've been working on The Boy I Am at that point for 5 years, and I was ready to write another story. And I thought, I cannot put it in a drawer, and because it keeps talking to me, it keeps wanting my attention. I have to have an ending. And so I thought, actually, I won't win a competition. I'm going to enter Scooby Undiscovered Voices, because I've been wanting to enter it with this story for a long time. I'd followed the SCBWI Undiscovered Voices process since I'd kind of got to know about it several years before. And I thought, I didn't expect in any way to get longlisted, let alone shortlisted, let alone to where I am today. I expected that this would be giving me a reason to say, I am done with the story, I can put it aside and I can move on. Unfortunately, but also very fortunately, because the universe turned around and said, no, we want more of this story. So I had to work on it for another 3 years and get it published. And I'm over the moon that was the way that I was taken. But the motivation for me for entering was just to get some kind of definitive yes or no. This book has got an audience, it has got an appeal to agents, and it has got an appeal to other writers and potential publishers. Or no, this doesn't. It's not the right time. Try again later. And I got that definitive answer, and it was a real boost for me. I then never expected to get an agent or a publisher, though I was always hopeful I would. And I had very similar experience to you, Simon. I had, nearly 20 requests for fulls, several offers of representation, and it was the hardest decision and the most wonderful one to be able to make, to choose the agent that would then take me forward to my book deal.
Fabulous. My journey is a little bit similar. I remember watching Simon go through Undiscovered Voices and thinking, hey, that's pretty cool. And then I remember chatting with Kitty at the Big Honk just on your Undiscovered Voices year, so that would have been 2018, and Kitty was telling me how amazing it was, and all of the fantastic craziness that was happening around her and her book. And I remember in 2018 thinking about entering that one, but I wasn't ready, and I'm so glad that I didn't enter in 2018, that I waited until my manuscript was ready and entered in 2020. There is quite a few questions in the chat about exactly how a couple of people are a little bit confused about exactly what Undiscovered Voices is and how you go about entering. So could you maybe talk about that, Sarah?
Sure. Well, Undiscovered Voices is an anthology. You only have to be an SCBWI member, and the next anthology will open in June, submissions, and you will send 4,000 words of a completed novel, and that's an important part, that it needs to be a completed draft of a novel. Because it's in June and then we don't announce until December, you do have some time to continue to revise your novel, but we ask it from a completed novel so that you can take advantage of, if you happen to be selected, you can take advantage of all the great things that are coming your way. So 4,000 words of a completed novel, a 75 word synopsis, and a short bio, and you will submit that online to us, and it will be read by a number of industry experts, and then ultimately we have a team of judges of 4 agents and 3 editors, and they will make the final selection. We usually have about 30 long listed undiscovered voices, and then we pick the top, usually 12, that will go in the anthology, and then we publish the anthology in January, so January of 2020, and then we will have a party at the end of February where we will launch the writers into the world.
Can I ask a question, or maybe glean an answer from you that I think is worth mentioning? That when you say you publish the anthology, it's also been gets sent around to influential people.
Yes. We it's now all online. I showed you my lovely books, but it's all online. So we email a link to UK agents and editors who are interested in children's publishing, other influentials, and we have a limited list, but a small list of US agents as well who we send it to, and then we invite anyone who we can to the party to meet you all.
And I will say, I've been to the Scholastic offices a few times on courses with Golden Egg, and I have seen on their shelves the past Undiscovered Voices books. Yeah. So they are kept, and they were in pride of place in some places. So I think that made me feel a little warm and fuzzy inside when I saw that. It wasn't my year, but
well, and just to really quickly, for the next Undiscovered Voices, we'll be announcing our plans for Undiscovered Voices 2022 in March. And because you have to be a member, we are looking at some ways to some opportunities for free memberships for underrepresented and people who might be having some financial hardship, because we know that's happening to a lot of people. So we are hoping to announce a plan to offer some free places. We're also this year going to offer some workshops, so stay tuned to workshops to help you prepare your extract and your synopsis and your bio. So stay tuned for those kinds of things. We will open mid-June and we will close mid-July, just so that you can have a timeline for that. Undiscoveredvoices.com is the place to go for all that information. And one thing I want to...
You can also have a look at past anthologies there.
I was just going to say that, yes. Yeah. You can download them, and the great thing about them is at the end of each extract are judges' comments. So it really is kind of a masterclass in how you hook a reader. Go through and look at those, because out of hundreds of submissions, those are the 12 we selected. And I want to say, because we select we create a collection, and we never say that it's the best of or it's the top whatever, because what happens is, we might have 3 top rom-com-ish stories, and we'll only put like one of those in an anthology. So there's so much talent in SCBWI, and it's always such a difficult choice. And also the people on the long list continue to get attention as well. I know that happens from time to time. And the other thing, both Annalise, all 3, Annalise, Kitty, and Simon were kind of like the bright stars. They got, they burned bright and got the agents and editors, I know, hair flip and giggle. Got some really quick attention. But I went back yesterday and looked at all, and how that year after year, someone from 2012 now gets their first deal, and because there really is talent in there, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. I mean, for example, in the first anthology, Candy Gourlay was in there, and the story is called Ugly City. That wasn't her first book, but Candy is certainly one of our success stories, nominated for pretty much any award you could ever know, and an incredibly talented person.
Yeah,
I'd say Talk, check it out.
Yeah, I'd say that I think I'd reiterate. I think people, just because you get into the Undiscovered Voices anthology doesn't guarantee you a deal. But like Simon said, it does get you the visibility. It does help with hype, and it helps you throughout your career, whether it is from the book that comes through the anthology, if you're lucky enough to get in there, or another one. I think the other thing I'd add is go and look at the anthologies, the blurb, because the hardest thing for me to do wasn't get my 4 chapters ready, or my 4,000 words, 3,000 words. Can't remember what it was. You'll have to remind me, Sarah. But it was getting that short blurb, and actually the exercise to write that really helped me get to know my novel, and led to a rewrite, because I looked at a lot of the ways that others had phrased them, and I realized that I hadn't kind of got to grips with my story enough. I didn't really know what it was about. And I wanted to make sure that there was the voice in that blurby chapter entry as well. And I workshopped it with a bunch of writers that I know over a weekend, who were amazing. and it gives you an excuse to also develop your novel as you're working towards it, or even if you don't intend to enter, to take something from those anthologies to help focus your story and what you want it to be about.
And Sarah, it's probably worth mentioning as well in terms of the age ranges of the stories we go for at UV, because it's everything from what's the youngest we go to. We don't do picture books. It's worth
no picture books, but 5+ to YA.
So
I told you some picture books, but people who've gone on to write, and like you, Simon, who've gone on to do picture books, but no picture book text. 5+, middle grade, 7, through YA. But
YA, So anything basically, anything in kid lit apart from picture books is eligible to be entered, basically.
There's a question in the questions, a question in the questions, obviously. Yeah, I do words real goodly, and someone wants to know if they are already represented for picture books. Are they able to enter Undiscovered Voices with a middle grade manuscript?
Unfortunately, if you're agented, we consider you discovered, which congratulations. If you have picture book, that's such a difficult thing to do. So well done. But yeah, we've had to say that if you're agented at all, you're not eligible for Undiscovered Voices. So sorry.
That includes non-fiction, I think, because I've had friends who've had non-fiction books who have wanted to enter who, I think it's a fairly carte blanche rule for a reason because of what Sarah said.
Definitely. This is for lovely Elizabeth and Debbie and the admin. Somebody's asking if we can share the links for the anthologies. So can one of you please pop the URL for Undiscovered Voices up in the chat, and then we can go and find that. That'd be brilliant. Thank you. Okay. So I wanted to ask Simon and Kitty. So both of you have obviously had fabulous success from Undiscovered Voices, and then you've decided to give back a bit. So Simon, you're helping to put together the anthology, and Kitty, you were a mentor last year. So would you like to talk about your experiences of that, and why you decided to get involved and what you've been doing to help Undiscovered Voices? Should we start with you, Kitty, with your mentoring of last year?
Yeah, and I hope to do it again as soon as I possibly can. I think one of the wonderful things about the children's writing community is it is a community. I have benefited dramatically from support from published authors, from want to be published authors, from agents who you get to know through meeting them through things like the Conference, through Golden Egg, through SCBWI and others. And I believe it is a necessary thing to do to pay that forward. So it's partly because Undiscovered Voices was such a huge influence on me and my writing career. I would not be here with my lovely book if it wasn't for Undiscovered Voices and Sarah and the team. But also I want to help that next tide of amazing authors, and hopefully underrepresented authors as well, come through, and the best thing I can give is my time and my experience as often as possible to all those who want it. And I think being able to pay that forward in any way is part of the career. You just need to do it. There's new voices coming through all the time because there are new children being born every time, and the world changes all the time.
Fabulous. And Simon, what do you get to read the manuscripts when they come in? I think it's worth mentioning also that you read the manuscripts blind, so you don't know who's written them. Yeah. All of the information about who has written it is taken off, so you just get the story. So what? Yeah, do you get to read them when they come in? Or are you?
I mean, similar to Kitty, I was just so grateful to UV for the chance it gave me, that I just wanted to kind of give something back and help out and help some other authors as well, because I know what it's like when you're desperately trying to get your work out there and get noticed. So to be able to give opportunity to others is fantastic. So I'm on the UV committee, which means along with the others, we kind of do everything in terms of putting all the admin stuff together, the announcements and the workshops leading up to it. But also, yes, we get to read all the submissions when they come in initially. And each one, I think, is read initially by at least two of us. That's right, isn't it, Sarah? So two of us will read it. We read it completely blind. So there's no, we don't know who's written it. We know nothing about the person or where it's come from, really. We just know the title, and we read it like that. And we get to see it. And we, based on based on reading it and the other person as well, that's how we initially get our sort of long list, I suppose, which we put together and eventually get a group together to send to the industry judges. So that's a really interesting process, because you kind of get to see the whole shape of what people are submitting. And it's really interesting because every year, quite often, there are things that you can see there are things that people are preoccupied with, and certain themes or subject matters will keep coming up. Like one year, for example, we had loads and loads of witches, didn't we, Sarah? I think it was witch stories everywhere. And I think another year, probably actually, the last year, actually, you know, there was a lot of environmentally based books for obvious reasons, and you can see why that would happen. You know, sort of concerns in the world come to the fore, and people want to write about them. And so really sort of one of my sort of top tips would be, you know, that's totally fine. Part of writing is accepting that other people will have similar ideas and write along similar lines to you. What's really interesting is to see what fresh spin different people bring to those ideas, and what your unique voice as a person, as an author, can kind of bring to that. And I think that's one of the things that can really help make your work in UV stand out, for me certainly, is what freshness and what differences you're bringing to those types of stories. As well as, you know, those things that everyone talks about, which are so easy to say, like, you know, a really captivating voice, which leaps off the page. Other really annoying phrases, which you don't really know what to do with, but you can see it when you read it, you know, and that's an interesting thing to look for as well. But other than that, I think when I'm reading for the first time, I just want to feel like I'm in a relatively safe pair of hands in terms of the storytelling. And that's really where, if you've had some editorial work, you know, through Golden Egg or through anybody really sort of helping it out, where that can really make a difference. And I don't think it's any accident that there's a very high percentage of finalists in the anthology who are Golden Egg people. I think that's one of the reasons why. I think that honing of the manuscript just really pings out on the page, and you can read it and think to yourself, you know, I feel like I'm in a safe pair of hands here telling this story. I kind of feel like it's going in a good direction, that it's got a structure I can kind of get on board with, and I think that helps as well. But other than that, just enter it. You've got to be in it to win it. That's the important thing, right? So, you know, there's really nothing to lose by entering, and everything to gain by even just getting longlisted for it. You know, can really help you.
Can I caveat that? There is, you can only enter a story once. So there is, what you be ready. I mean, yes, you have to be in it to win it, but make sure you're feeling to whatever extent you can, that this is the chance for this book. It's the right time. Like I said, I was in a point where I had, quote, nothing to lose. I was done. And I had an opportunity. And if I failed at that opportunity, I would be going, fine, now I have a reason to move on. But if you feel like you've got more work to do on that book, you maybe do. And so it's a good opportunity to study what you need to do to achieve it, to look at the synopses, to look at the other entries, to see how they compare to yours. Read also the I think you said text out with the long list about the themes, about the things that you're seeing and in the entries from the previous years. And use it as a learning tool as much as anything, so that you know that when you do enter, you're confident that this is the right time for it. That would be my only caveat to that.
Definitely, which is exactly what happened with me. I knew my book wasn't anywhere near being ready, and I was really glad that I had an extra 2 years.
Because competition is tough. There are some, I mean, if there's one thing I remember when I read, it was Simon's anthology, I remember going and reading, going, oh, everyone's so good, and thinking I needed to do a bit more work.
And I think, just to say that, you know, if you sit in your work and you aren't in the anthology, it may, or even if you don't make the long list, it may not mean that there's no value. I mean, because there are tons of things, Simon will agree with this, there are tons of things that we love that don't make the long list, because we don't get to make the decisions. We have, we kind of support and send a list on, but there are a lot of things that even don't make the long list that break my heart every year. And one thing I will say, that, you know, every time we do this, you read all these submissions, and we begin to fight as a team. We begin to fight for and root for what's in the anthology. And then what's brilliant and renews my faith in children's publishing, not that it needs renewed, but we sat with agents and editors, and to hear them fight for these stories, for these 4,000 word extracts, and talk about them with such passion and such excitement, it's just wonderful, because agents and editors in children's publishing love what they do. And that comes through every time we talk. And we had, we've never had fights, but they certainly can, someone will say, this has to be in it, or what is the use, and it's amazing to me. They've read 4,000 words and they love something like that, which is great. And I think, that happened for me with all of your books. But again, there are some books that were on the long list, and there's some books that haven't made the long list that are still in my heart and still in my memory as being exceptional books.
Have you seen any of them come through?
Out there, going
have you seen any of them come through and be published outside of Undiscovered Voices?
Yeah, we have lots from the honorary mentions, and lots, from the list. Or it may not be that book, because I don't know names. So that's the hard thing, is I don't know. But I mean, again, just, being in children's publishing and wanting to be a published writer, the most important characteristic to me is tenacity, because there are smarter, funnier, better writers than me, but I can be knocked down and I will get back up. And I have a lovely, huge file cabinet full of rejections. And I still said, wait a minute, I got a story to tell, and I'm going to learn more. I'm going to be a better writer. I'm going to keep going. And I think tenacity is a huge part of being published, not, hanging in there when you have a story to tell. And the hard thing is, like you talked about, Kitty, is because we all have, I think most of us have stories that we've put in the drawer and kind of stay in the drawer, or, don't find the light of day. But those apprentice pieces are equally important. And I think it's hard to know, when do you say farewell to a certain project? It's hard to do.
It's like putting a child in a cupboard. I would say I've got several children. Some of them never leave the house.
Bless you, the poor twins. I've got a question. So how have things changed with the way that things are at the moment? So is it like an ongoing organic process that you're doing with Undiscovered Voices 2022 at the moment? So just playing it by ear, or are there definite things that are gonna change? We are
I want to say well-oiled machine, but now that I say that, something's going to happen. So I didn't say that. But we've all been together. We start in October. We started in October to start planning for UV 2022, and plans are definitely underway. A lot of things. I mean, most of it is very similar. We do have a few tricks up our sleeve for UV 2022, but it's mostly the same process, with some great volunteers and some great people who help us out along the way.
We're mainly just hoping that we can still do the party by the launch. That's the important thing, that people can get together, because the party is a phenomenal event full of the most wonderful canapes and drinks, and it's absolutely imperative that it happens, and that the pandemic is gone by then and people can meet up in a room together. So that's the main thing I'm keeping my fingers crossed for, because I love a canapé.
I also feel like Undiscovered Voices, the party was like the beginning of COVID and the lockdowns and things. So I feel like we need to end this with another UV party, so that we bookend it, and we're like, this happened in the middle, but we will never speak of it.
Yeah. So we're going to accept submissions this year in June, and the party will be next February. So a year. And Simon is responsible for the canapés. So
I am. One of my jobs and my roles, my main function in many ways, is to look at the canapé menu and select what we're having. I
remember every canapé I've ever eaten that you've ordered. They are wonderful.
Thank you.
I would also add that the UV party isn't just about the canapés. Sorry, Simon. It is also an amazing networking opportunity, because obviously not everybody, at least could get to that point that we are. Maybe some of the people who are in Undiscovered Voices didn't find an agent that year, or didn't find a publisher, but they came out of the party at least with a huge amount of network worth, having met fantastic publishers, fantastic agents, who they can then contact, or who might contact them at some point. And it helps you get to know a little bit more of the industry. It is advisable not to get as squiffy as I did the first Undiscovered Voices.
Well, and you are invited back year and year. You're invited back each year. So if you haven't found an agent yet, then you never know. You might have that party. A future party might bring some goodness. And one of my favorite moments from an Undiscovered Voices party was someone came up to me. It was an agent. She said, "Are you the fixer?" And I went, maybe. And she said, "Because I want to meet, so and so, and can you?" And so my role in that party, and Simon's role as well, is we go through, and if you're standing at the wall, we go, "Kitty, have you met so and so from Scholastic?" And an agent will, come up and say, "Hey, I want to meet Simon James Green," and I take them over, and that's a really fun part of my job, is because I get to know those stories so well that we become kind of like the pitching experts alongside them, going, "Oh, if you loved this, then you're going to definitely want to read The Invention of Night," the extract from Annalise, which is now called The Night Silver
Promise.
The Night Silver Promise.
And I would say that's my role as a mentor as well. I think Annalise will remember me very well, throwing her at various agents. And
even though you weren't my mentor. So you still, which I was very grateful for, because my mentor couldn't make it that evening. So Kitty stepped in, and she had two of us, and she was like, "Annalise, go and meet this person." And I think you actually introduced me to Yasmin, who then became my editor at Scholastic. So
it's all down to you, Kitty.
I expect the drinks in the post. I mean, chocolate. Yeah, and then Michael, who was my mentee that year, who's being published this year alongside me as part of a debut. So it shows you that that things can happen at very different speeds as well in the publishing industry. And I'm really excited to be published alongside my mentee this year, and that's you, Anna. Cool.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We've got quite a few questions, so I'm just going to go through some of them. So somebody wanted to know, what stage does the manuscript have to be at a complete, or can it be reworking? That was from Maria.
Well, you need a completed novel, because I also think that sometimes you have to get to the end of a draft to know what your story is about and to write that opening. So nobody comes to your house. We're not coming to your house, but we do it for a reason, because it needs to be ready. So in February, it needs to be ready to be sent out to publishers. And so I think having a draft in June makes that all possible.
Definitely.
Have you
I
had
definitely advise having it, done.
Have you had any people who've been shortlisted and have had full manuscripts requested that haven't been available?
Not to my knowledge. And I mean, the first, I think it was only the first anthology, we didn't say from a completed novel, and we actually had some short stories. And I think some of the reason it took those folks longer, because they didn't have anything. They were given this opportunity and they didn't have anything ready to send. So I think, having that completed novel makes most, and it does happen every 2 years, which seems like a long time, but as I think, Annalise, you've said, which is such great, information, is wait till you're ready and it's ready. Because we do say you can only send it in once.
Yeah, and being asked for that full manuscript by a potential publisher or agent when it isn't in a place where you're comfortable to send it is really disheartening. And I think so do have a completed novel. It can be being reworked. I was reworking my novel while I was longlisted, because I had learned so much from the process of entering Undiscovered Voices. I knew there were changes I needed to make in my manuscript, but I very, very much was confident in the first few chapters. It was just, latter parts. And your novel is never finished until it's published. You will be editing it until the day it leaves your hands, and you will want to edit it after it has left. So I don't believe that any novel is.
True. Oh, okay. So we've got a question about the extract that people send in. So do the 4,000 words have to be from the beginning of the novel, or can it be from anywhere? Simon, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, we say the beginning, don't we, Sarah? I think always. I think it does make sense. I think to get in there right at the very start of the story, so we can get a sense of how how it begins, obviously, and you know, if it's a strong enough beginning, I suppose. Really, I think if you go somewhere in the middle, we kind of lose that context a little bit, which doesn't really help us or the industry readers either. So yeah, from the very start of your story, please, and hopefully hitting the ground running with not too much backstory up front, unless you're doing it in a clever way, I guess.
I think one thing is, oh, sorry, no, you go, Sarah.
No, I was just saying that was another thing. In the first anthology, we asked for 4,000 words, assuming people would send the first 4,000, and most people did. But what we did find is that if people who sent, you know, chapter 4, 11, and 12, we didn't understand what was going on, so you can't possibly select them. And also, I will say, if the first 4,000 words of your novel isn't the strongest, why not? It absolutely, yeah. You know, it absolutely should be what you want to send me, because it is the best part. It's going to grab me by the throat and not let go.
Yeah, I'd say if you're more excited, it's pretty much what I was going to say, but if you're more excited about a cliffhanger, a midpoint, a really exciting scene in the middle of the book, then why aren't you starting your novel there? Because the first 4,000 words are what any reader will read to get into your novel. And if it isn't going to grab you, if it isn't going to grab an agent, if it can't grab you, it won't grab an agent or a reader eventually. And so I would ask that question back to yourself. Why aren't you confident about those first 4,000 words? And what can you do? There was a brilliant story, I think it was, I can't remember which book, whether it was William Golding's Lord of the Flies or another story, that kept being handed around publishers when they were physical manuscripts. And the publisher that finally picked it up, again, I don't know if it's this book, started reading where all the other publishers had stopped. And that was where they then ended up starting the novel from when it was published, because the first few chapters were just not worth it. So, you know, you may not be starting a novel in the right place if you're not feeling that love for that moment. You know, I loved my first 4 chapters. They were never my first 4 chapters for the first 6 drafts of my book. They were the 4 to 8. So I had to get rid of 4 chapters to find my beginning.
And that's very common. And one thing kind of that we see again and again, and that happens every time we read the submissions, is that what I read, the first 4,000 words are ramping up. And I often say, gosh, this is a great idea. There's a voice here, but the story starts about 2 chapters away from this, because they're telling me the backstory and they're preparing me for this great story. And then their 4,000 words are over. And, you know, a lot of them don't get set on, not because they're not great stories or great ideas or there's not a voice. It's just, you haven't sent me the story yet.
Fabulous. That's really, really good advice. I think Tilda did a workshop on beginnings. So check that out. If you feel that your beginning is maybe not as strong as it could be and you would like to enter Undiscovered Voices, go and have a look at Tilda's workshop from yesterday on how to do really strong beginnings. We've got a question. When considering entries, how much is based on your love for the story and versus how you think it will do in the market, Sarah? How do you do you think about the market, or do you just think this is good writing?
What I tell the first round and second round of judges is we're looking for promise, not perfection. We're looking for, and there were times, you know, in the judging when they will talk about the commercial aspect of a novel, but mostly we just want great stories with great voices. I mean, undiscovered voices, it's the voice. So I think there is a time when sometimes the judges will talk about, you know, where do they see this? But we do try to say this is really about the voice and about the story, and try to take off that marketing hat if we can.
What are the reasons you wouldn't put a book through? I mean, there are common reasons that it wouldn't go into the next round.
Most of it is confidence in on the page that Simon was talking about earlier. I mean, we want a selection. So also, you know, if we typically have about 40% are YA, about 50% ish are middle grade, and then we have we don't have as many as the younger audience, so 5+, 7 to 9, and because we want a collection. So a lot of times we'll have 2 dystopian stories, and we think we only have 12, so we're going to put 1 dystopian story. Again, it's heartbreaking, but we try to look at the collection so that we have a number of age ranges and a number of, you know, we won't have 2 witch stories, or we won't have 2 rom-com stories. that we were looking at a collection, because we're also use it as a tool to say, this is what you can expect from SCBWI. This is kind of some of the best writing across the whole market, across the genres. And a lot of times, like I said, the reason I set it aside is because you haven't started the story in the right place, or you haven't hooked me, or I have too many questions. And again, you know, I can overlook, and not every edit, but I can overlook kind of niggling little editing things that need to happen, as long as the voice is there, and as long as after those 4,000 words, I want to dive into that database and figure out where Kitty Kettle lives and drive to her house and demand those next pages. And you know, that happens. That there are those stories that they just spark, and it's voice that comes off the page. And sometimes it's just the story's not starting in the right place. You haven't hooked me. I have too many questions. Simon, do you have some other reasons why?
No, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. I've just noticed a little question sort of linked to that in the comments from Nina. Do you think there's room for quiet stories? Which is an interesting question, I think, related to this. And I think, yes, there absolutely is, actually. But again, it's related to what Sarah's just been saying. A lot of that will boil down to the voice of the story being the thing that hooks us and grabs us and makes us want to read on. It's not essential that your story starts with a huge explosion or something massively dramatic or anything like that. It doesn't need to be a fast-paced chase to kick it off necessarily either. There's definitely room for quiet stories, but when you're talking about those quiet stories, then, you know, we really have to completely connect and engage with that main character straight away. And the voice is, voice is always crucial anyway, regardless of what kind of style you're writing in, but I suppose even more so perhaps us connecting with that voice if your story is a little bit quieter. But I don't think there's any rules in terms of the style you're writing in, really, in terms of getting through. You know, it's just those things that Sarah's been talking about which are really important, and the reasons why it's going to move on to the next stage. And like I was saying earlier, you know, if it's something we've seen before, seeing a lot of, it's about that kind of fresh or unusual take on it as well, or your unique angle. Is probably the thing that's going to push it through, I would say. I don't really think about its commercial viability particularly, because I think apart from anything else, it's not my job to. That's what agents and publishers think about. But also, I think what is commercially viable does actually change quite a lot year on year anyway. And suddenly books that 2 years ago people were saying we could never sell this in a million years, suddenly they become the books that everyone's looking for and everyone wants to publish, and then that changes again, you know. So I think, you know, the whole thing about whether a book is commercial or not is really subjective anyway, and changes relatively fast. So I don't personally think it's a thing that, it's certainly not something that I think about anyway. It's just about the quality of the writing, and if I engage with it and connect with it.
Yeah, I mean, when I entered, everyone was saying YA was dead and dystopia is dead. I have a YA dystopia now published. So the market changes, and the reviews I'm getting are saying, and this goes back to the voice, that I'm coming at dystopia in The Boy I Am from a different voice, a different perspective. I'm talking about feminism with a male character in the lead. So there was something different there. There was something to hopefully make it stand out from the pack. Along with my authorial voice, the way I write, there was something different about the story, which, you know, I'm hoping is one of the reasons that the guys picked it. So I think, you know, if you're writing a book that you may think is original, have a look at the market and say, what am I doing that is going to make this stand out? If it's not the subject matter, if it's not the plot, then is the way that you're writing it different? Is it new? Is it engaging? And if not, is there a way that you can come at it from a different angle? I found my voice as a writer in writing this book. The books that I wrote before this, going back, I realized I was emulating other people's writing. And that's what voice is. A lot of people think it's a very ephemeral thing. I mean, once you get it, you get it. It's confidence, as Simon and Sarah said, but it's also doing something in your style, in your storytelling, that isn't just, you know, being the next, you know, J.K. Rowling or Krista Cowell. You know, you're doing something that makes, you know, your writing.
Yeah, I remember from the boot camp weekend last weekend, Candy said, don't write what you know, write who you are. And then that was just such a wonderful moment for me, because I was like, yes, that's where your voice comes from, is you write who you are and you show that on the page. Sorry, Sarah.
That's okay. I was just going to say, voice is such a strange thing, and we all throw it around like, but it's hard to define. And I found a book recently, and it's called, I was looking up here because it's called The Voice. It's James Scott Bell. I don't have my pajama bottoms on, thankfully. So it's called James Scott Bell Voice, The Secret Power of Great Writing. And it's a really thin book.
Oh, I'm getting that.
But it's one of it's when I read it, I thought it's one of the best books about voice. Because a lot of times when you read about voice, because I was going to teach, I teach at Goldsmith, so I was going to teach a class about voice. And I started to look for, well, how do people talk about it? And everybody would just give examples like, oh, Annalisa has a great voice, and Simon has a great voice, and Kitty. But I'm like, going, yeah, but how do I do that? And James Scott Bell is, I so heart James Scott Bell. Anything he writes, I don't know if it's just me, but he just cuts it all down into a way that I understand it. So I want to pass, because that was really helpful to me. It really.
I'm getting that. I would also say, if the concept of voice eludes you, it's another reason to go and read the Undiscovered Voices anthologies in the past, because and studying them, read them as a writer, what makes these extracts stand out. Because if you don't think it's the quality of the writing, if you read it and you think, why is this here? There is a reason. So it might be that it's new. It might be that it's the theme. It might be that it's they're coming at a common type of story, but with a different set of eyes, from a different background, for example, rather than your standard white middle class writer. So there are lots of different ways to use the past anthologies to help inform your writing now, whether you just choose to enter or not, and then to help you inform whether or not you enter and what you enter.
Fabulous. Kind of on that same vein, Simon, somebody has asked you specifically, Libby asked, have you got any tips for humorous books entering into UV?
Well, yes. I mean, first of all, God, yes, please enter funny books, because I tell you now, we don't have a lot of entries which are funny, or even think they're funny but aren't funny even. But it's very, very few and far between. And the thing is I quite often hear comments from the industry judges like, we'd love some kind of stuff that's a little bit lighter in tone maybe, or humorous, it's just what the world needs right now, and God knows it is. So first of all, great. I would say there is a market and a demand for it, so hooray. In terms of specific advice for humorous entries, I mean, yeah, I suppose you have to resign yourself to the fact that comedy is highly subjective, and what one person finds funny, another person simply won't. But I think that's fine. I think obviously, finding that unique, funny voice, there's that word again, is really important. But apart from that, don't neglect the other sides of the story, which, simple things like, the strong plot and the character having a strong goal throughout as well. And also the story having some kind of heart to it, I think, is really important as well. Funny books can't just be gag after gag or humorous set piece after humorous set piece, because that very quickly gets quite boring and dull to read. You need those ups and downs, just like any good story should have. So you need the moments of high comedy, whatever style it is, the slapstick, the wordplay, whatever it might be. But you do also, I think, really need those more heartfelt moments, and a character that does go on some kind of emotional journey through all the laughs as well. And I think that's true of middle grade as much as it is in YA as well, if it's going to be successful. So you do want your readers to still kind of deeply connect with that funny character and their hilarious situations. I'm not saying you have to go down the route of, there's quite a few funny books where they're laugh a minute and then they'll throw in something really goddamn tragic and sad, like somebody dying, or a serious illness or something like that. And I mean, personally, I don't, I mean, again, it's a very subjective thing. I don't personally love that angle. I don't think you necessarily need to go that far unless your story really demands it. But you can still have a lot of fun playing around with, if it's a YA, the kind of the ups and downs of teenage life, the disappointments of romance, the sad moments, the tears of the clown type of thing, can all happen really well. And in middle grade, shy, awkward underdog characters who, you know, do have lots of laughs and are funny, but ultimately just want acceptance, just want to be loved, just want the respect of their peers, can, I think, give you enough of that heart and goal to really drive the story through. So that would be my sort of top tips, really, is finding a way to combine those things with your humour. And please, if it's ready, send it in, because it would be glorious to see some more funny stuff in all age groups.
Fabulous. Somebody's put in the comments about classic telly like Only Fools and Horses, and I remember reading something about the writer of Only Fools and Horses, and there was an episode near the end of the series where he was like, nobody's laughing, and then he realized it was because everybody was crying, and that really brought home to him the power of I think it was just after Cassandra had lost her baby, and it really brought home the power of, you know, laughter and how that can lead into those moments where we need strength and that are really deep and connecting. So yeah, make sure that your funny book is not just funny, it has depth to it, like Simon's books.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of questions. I'm going to smudge two together because we're running out of time a bit. So basically, people are interested if they enter Undiscovered Voices and they either get representation or they are they allowed to enter other competitions like the Times Chicken House at the same time? So what are the rules about that? So if you enter and then you find
no
out.
rules. I mean, you can enter ours and anything else, and because we just want, you know, great success. We do ask and that you don't send, you know, that you're not sending it out to agents, and we have this every year. Agents, I mean, I don't remember what I had for breakfast, but agents will remember if they've seen it before. And every year, unfortunately, at the judging panel, so we've put something forward, like 5 of the 7 will say, I've already read this and rejected it. So if it is a story that you've sent around to agents and been rejected, send us another story, because they do remember, and it's kind of a lost opportunity for you. But you have to remain unagented from the time that you submit it to the party. And that's what we ask of you. But you can submit it to anything else. And it happens a lot that, you know, somebody gets in our anthology and they also get in the back long list and other things as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fabulous. And then somebody else has said that they have worked with working partners in the past, so they've written, but it wasn't their own book. Could they still enter the competition if they haven't got representation by an agent?
Absolutely, yes. If you've ghostwritten things, as long as if you have your name is on the spine of a book, of any book, you know, basically you've been published. But if you've ghostwritten for working partners, no, it's a great opportunity actually to have that kind of experience, and working for working partners is great at kind of helping hone your craft. But no, if you're ghostwriting, your name isn't on the spine, send us your stuff. Can't wait. Love to see it.
Fabulous. Yeah, make sure. So I think top tips are: make sure that it's ready, make sure that you are happy with it and where it is before you enter. Know that you only get this one opportunity, so don't waste it. And it's also the same for when you're sending to agents as well. I mean, Sarah just said that sometimes the industry panel looks at it and says, oh no, I've already seen this. You only get that one chance to make a really good impression. So spend most of your time working on your manuscript and polishing it and making sure that those first 4,000 words really, really sing, and that they do all of the things that Simon told you about earlier, and don't do all of the things that Kitty said earlier. So like they don't stop you from getting into the action. You wanna start, you know, in the bit that grabs your reader. Any other quick top tips for people?
I think I want to see a hint of the journey to come, because sometimes we read those 4,000 words and I'm like, wow, confident writing. I got no idea where the story is going. I don't know if it's a mystery. And then you read the synopsis and you go, what? There's space aliens? I didn't know it was Facebook. So I think, I'm not saying say it was a dark and stormy night and something dangerous was going to happen, but you should be able to tell from those opening lines. Is it a funny story? Is it a mystery? Is it going to be action adventure? Is it going to be a horror story? Is it going to be, but I always think of, is there a hint of the journey to come? Because that's another reason we see rejection, is because we read it and go, it's great, but don't know what kind of book it is.
Excellent. So give us, signpost us towards what kind of adventure we're about to go on. Simon, have you got a top tip that you want to share?
I'm a big fan of realistic dialogue, and I think you know, if you're writing in the voice of whatever it might be, a 10-year-old boy, a teenager, really make sure that the way you're structuring that dialogue and the stuff they're saying sounds authentic and realistic in some way, whatever type of characteristics they may have. I think that's something that I see quite often people not maybe due to the best of their ability on some of the submissions that I see come in, and it's something that really turns me off a book quite quickly if I don't buy it. It's true of the other characters as well. You know, often parents in books sound very similar to one another across lots of different manuscripts that come in. You know, they all kind of speak in the same kind of weird way that's vaguely parenty but not particularly interesting. Remember that adults have characters as well, and they're not all boring necessarily.
No, sometimes they like to be Beyonce tribute acts.
Well,
So.
they do. It's perfectly legitimate. So, but whatever it might be, you know, it'd be great to get a hint of that as well. So, some great books being published at the minute, especially middle grade, have really realistic 3D, fully fleshed out parents and adult characters in them, as well as the kids. And I think it's really important to see that personally.
Definitely. So yeah, have a little look at your dialogue, make sure it's being authentic, and your secondary characters, make sure you are being true to them and not, you know, giving them the short shift. Okay, and Kitty.
Okay, I'll be quick because I know we're getting to the end and people might be moving to other.
We are a little bit over, but they've got 15 minutes before the next one. We need to go and open the room.
I'll take my time. No, I would say the two big ones for me are one about look at that 50-word synopsis. It is harder than you think, and it is more important than you think. If you can't write it, and if you can't write it in a voice itself, then you might have some reflection to take on your own manuscript and how simple the story is and how well you can get it across and what you think it's about. And my second one, because I put more effort into that than my 4,000 word submission, to be bluntly honest. And my other one is saying, if you can't work out the voice, then think about who your character that you're telling the story about is talking to. Who are they telling the story to? My lead protagonist is talking, his entire internal dialogue is effectively for a friend that he's lost. So it's collegiate, it's secretive. Who is your protagonist talking to? Even if it's in a third person, you can still ask that question. And that might help unlock a little bit more of the voice and make it a more authentic story rather than an authorial voice, which is you telling everybody what's happening.
Fabulous. Excellent advice. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of the Honference and for telling everybody about Undiscovered Voices. Not many people took part in the poll, but everyone that did said they're definitely entering.
Yay.
So yay. And hopefully we will get you some funny books, Simon.
I can't wait to read them.
Yeah, great.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, Simon and Catherine, and thank you so much to Debbie and to Elizabeth, who are our admins for this session, and thank you to all of the volunteers who have given up their time to help me and Jane organise this mammoth weekend. Yeah, they're amazing and I love them.
Good luck to everyone.
Yeah,
thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
Take care.
Bye.